Level 0. Most people have felt this at least once. You wake up at 3 a.m. The room is fine, nothing happened. But something made you open your eyes, and now your heart is beating slightly faster than it should be for someone who was just asleep. You tell yourself it was nothing. You go back to sleep. This is level 0. The version of fear every human being on Earth knows personally, the kind that dissolves by morning and leaves no mark. Neuroscientists call this hyperarousal, a well-documented activation of the threat detection system during sleep transitions. The amygdala, the brain's threat processing center, never fully shuts down during sleep. It maintains a low-level monitoring state, scanning for environmental anomalies, even while the rest of the brain rests. This is not a flaw. It is one of the oldest survival mechanisms in the human body. What makes it interesting is what it scans for, not loud sounds, not obvious movement. It scans for pattern violations, things that should be one way and are slightly another, the absence of something that should be present, the presence of something that should not. So, when it fires at 3 a.m. with no identifiable cause, one of two things happened. Either the stimulus was too small for your conscious mind to register, or it registered something your conscious mind does not yet have a category for. The radar is not malfunctioning. It is functioning better than most people ever do. I found something tonight. It just woke you up before it could tell you what. And somewhere down the hall, a light is on that you did not turn on. Level 1. You stop moving. And the moment you do, you hear it. A whisper. Not words exactly, more like the shape a word makes before it fully arrives. The breath before someone says your name. Then it says your name. Clearly. At the level of your ear. You spin. Nothing is there. Here is what is actually happening. Research on auditory hallucinations under sensory deprivation, documented in peer-reviewed studies in journals including Schizophrenia Bulletin, shows the brain functions as a prediction engine. It generates predictions about expected input and checks them against incoming data. When incoming data drops to near zero, the predictions keep generating. With nothing to correct them, they play back as perception. Voices. Your own name, assembled from memory and delivered in a room quiet enough to receive it. The room is not haunted. The room is quiet enough for you to hear the part of your own mind that is always expecting something. Stop and sit with that for a second. The voice said your name. Your own brain generated a voice in the dark, and the first thing it said was your name. Not a warning, not a sound, your name. That is the thing your threat detection system decided to lead with. In controlled sensory deprivation studies, voices produced this way carry one of two tones: warning or anticipation. The whisper in this room carries both. The room has not changed. You have. The moment you stopped moving, something in you shifted from passive to active, from receiving to scanning. The room feels different because you are different in it now. A room does not illuminate itself. Something turned those lights on before you arrived. It was expecting you. Level 2. The intercom crackles. Attention shoppers. Item number 7. Nobody clarifies. This is level 2, and the mechanism here has a name. Psychologists call it contextual mismatch, the cognitive disruption produced when an environment matches its physical template but violates every behavioral expectation associated with it. The brain runs a continuous model of how spaces should behave. Grocery stores belong to a category that requires people, noise, transaction, movement. When the physical shell is present but the expected activity is absent, the brain does not register it as simply empty. It registers it as evidence. Something happened. You missed it. You are standing inside the aftermath. This response has been documented across cultures. Empty institutional spaces, malls, schools, stations, trigger the same physiological stress signature globally. The brain treats the missing population not as absence but as loss. That is the word the research uses. Loss, not emptiness. Loss. Your brain is grieving at the supermarket, and that grief makes it vulnerable. A mind processing loss is a mind that is not fully scanning. Something in this building has been counting on exactly that. At the far end of aisle 13, someone is standing. Same height, same posture. They should be 50 feet away based on the geometry of the aisle. They feel like they are 10, close enough to see a face. There is no face to see. You blink, they are gone. The light above where they stood is the only one not flickering. That light is perfectly, absolutely still. Something in this building is still here. Not a person. Something that does not need to move to be a threat. Something that has simply been waiting for someone to walk down aisle 13. Level 3. You cannot see the floor. Research in human threat response consistently identifies what behavioral scientists call path occlusion fear, the stress response generated specifically by inability to see your next step. Studies on anxiety and terrain navigation show that visual occlusion of the immediate path activates the same physiological fear cascade as visible threat detection. No predator required. no danger in sight. Your nervous system requires terrain legibility to function normally. Remove it and the system defaults to threat mode. Your body responds to not seeing the floor the same way it responds to seeing something with teeth. Think about that. You are standing in water in a school hallway. No monster, no weapon, no threat you can name. And your nervous system has classified this as equivalent to Jaws. Something moves beneath the surface, not toward you, not away. A shift in pressure against your legs, a ripple originating behind you, traveling forward. You walk, one foot finding the floor before the other leaves it. The water pushes back in a way that feels slightly more intentional than physics allows. The door handle is colder than the water. You push it open. You pause. Part of you wants to go back. Back through the dark water, back to the supermarket with its humming lights. When the flooded school feels like the safer option, you have entered a different category entirely. On the other side is a forest, and the forest is completely silent, and every instinct you have fires simultaneously the moment you register what that silence means. Not the silence of emptiness, the silence of everything that lives here choosing at once to stop. Level 4. Forests are never actually silent. Acoustic ecology research, including foundational work by Bernie Krause, who has recorded thousands of natural soundscapes over 50 years, shows that healthy ecosystems maintain continuous layered sound. When that baseline disappears instantaneously, two explanations exist. Either every living thing in the vicinity detected a predator and went silent simultaneously, or something happened to this environment that the living things understood before you did. Neither interpretation is reassuring. You try to speak. Nothing. Your throat moves correctly, your lungs push air, but no sound reaches your ears. Studies on anechoic chambers, rooms engineered for near-total sound absorption, document that humans cannot tolerate complete acoustic isolation beyond a few minutes before the brain begins generating auditory content, your own heartbeat, blood moving through your skull, at the extreme fully formed voices and tones you recognize. The brain cannot accept total silence. It is invented. It insists. So when you hear the laugh distant and tonally wrong, it takes a full second to accept it was real. Not a scream, not a growl, a laugh. Something in this forest has been watching long enough that your fear has become, for it, entertaining. The trees are identical in every direction. The light has no source and casts no shadows. Above the canopy, something begins descending. No urgency. The movement of something that knows you are not going anywhere. The elevator doors are between two trees, open. You step toward them. You did not choose to get in. You stepped toward the doors and they closed around you before your next thought arrived. There is a difference between entering a room and being received by one. Level 5. You are going down. The pressure in your inner ear confirms it. B1, B2, B7, B19, B43. Still going. The deepest mine ever excavated, the Tautona gold mine in South Africa, reaches 2.4 miles underground. At that depth, the surrounding rock reaches 140 degrees Fahrenheit, before ventilation systems bring it to survivable levels. The pressure is a documented physiological threat. You have passed that depth. You are still moving. B67 glitches to -12, then to a character belonging to no numeral system. Then the display goes dark. Here's what the research says about this specific configuration of fear. Psychologists studying locus of control, the documented belief in one's ability to influence outcomes, identify its removal as one of the most reliable triggers of acute stress response. Studies on elevator entrapment, published by the American Elevator Institute, show that the fear is not produced by danger. It is produced by the absence of input. No buttons, no panel, no action available. The nervous system interprets the removal of agency as equivalent to physical restraint, the same fMRI activation pattern, the same cortisol spike. Add descent movement downward without a chosen destination, and research on vestibular threat response shows the inner ear communicates directly with the amygdala before the brain has processed the situation consciously. You feel wrong before you know why. The descent continues. The air has a quality the body registers before the mind names it. Not dangerous, not stale, just genuinely old. It has not been in contact with anything living for a very long time. The hum drops in pitch, the register of machinery built before modern engineering standards. Something old running in the dark because nobody ever came to turn it off. Which raises a question the brain starts asking at this depth and cannot stop. If nobody came to turn it off, nobody came back at all. Whatever sent the elevator down here the first time did not return. And now you have. Across the elevator, your own face looks back from the metal wall. It has not moved in a while. Its expression is not yours. There is a sound now that was not there before. Below the hum. Below the drone of whatever is pulling you down. Something that might be the structure settling under pressure. Something that might be breathing. The doors are opening. You are about to meet something that has never encountered a person before. It does not know what you are. It does not know that you can be frightened. It is about to find out. Level 6. Except it is standing 2 feet to the left of where reflection geometry requires it to be. Same clothes, same height, hands held the way yours are when you are trying to appear calm, chest rising and falling at your breathing rate. It has not blinked since you started looking at it. The brain maintains a continuously updated self-model, a neurological map of your own body, face, and behavioral patterns against which all incoming perception is compared. Self-recognition is documented as one of the most evolutionarily protected cognitive functions in humans and is present in only a small number of species. When the self-model detects an external entity that matches its own pattern but does not respond to self-commands, classification fails completely. A brain that cannot classify what it is looking at does not produce confusion. It produces a specific terror that has no common name because the brain was never supposed to need one. Consider what that means. The brain has a name for every category of fear: heights, predators, infection, darkness. It has been cataloging threats for millions of years, and it has no word for this one. That absence is the fear. You blink, it smiles. Just the corners, no teeth. The expression of something that has been waiting for a specific trigger and has just watched that trigger arrive exactly on schedule. One step, smooth. The movement of something that knows the destination is already determined. You close your eyes. When you open them, you are in your bedroom. Morning light, your own sheets. Relief. Your phone says 7:43. The microwave says 9:12. The clock on the wall says 6:58. 3 clocks, 3 different times. Not a malfunction. A message. Level 7. This is called false awakening, a documented neurological event occurring in lighter sleep stages, where the brain generates waking experience indistinguishable from actual waking. EEG studies on false awakening show cortical activity patterns that partially resemble genuine wakefulness. Not dreaming, not awake. Caught between, running both simultaneously. The danger is the verification failure. Reality testing systems are active enough to feel functional, but not calibrated to catch the errors. The people around you today speak with lips that arrive a fraction before their words. Normal sentences, normal faces. Everything about them is slightly, subtly off. Shadows anticipate the objects that cast them, moving a moment early. You run the standard tests, light switch, phone text, your hands. Everything passes, except there are 8 fingers on your left hand. You have been staring at it for 30 seconds before your brain catches the anomaly. That delay is the precise measurement of how deep you are. The deeper the false awakening, the longer the gap, the less your reality testing can be trusted. The unsettling part is not the 8 fingers. The unsettling part is the 30 seconds. Your brain looked directly at something impossible and kept moving, kept functioning, kept telling you everything was fine. That is not a glitch. That is the system is overwhelmed. It passed the test because the test was broken. You did not wake up. And the thing standing behind you has been there since before this version of your room appeared. It has been watching you check for it in all the wrong places. You checked your hands, you checked the light switch, you checked the text on your phone. All of the standard tests, all of them passed. None of them were the right test. Level 8. You turn around, nothing visible. Your room is exactly as it should be. The feeling does not leave because the feeling is not produced by something you can see. In 2014, researchers at EPFL published findings on presence hallucination, using robotic sensory manipulation to reliably induce the sensation in healthy subjects. When the brain's self-location system and its sensory processing system fall out of sync, the brain generates a phantom presence to fill the gap. Spatially located, physically felt, real in every experiential sense. The brain generates a presence when its self-model and its environmental model have stopped agreeing. When the version of you that exists in your mind and the version of you the world has been responding to have diverged. Here is what that divergence feels like from the inside. You are in a familiar room. Nothing is wrong, but a part of your nervous system is running a calculation it will not share with you. And the answer it keeps returning is that you are not alone. Not a sound, not a shape, just a certainty the body holds that the mind cannot locate a source for. Trace the sequence back. Every room, every figure that did not chase you. The same presence, patient and unhurried, walking you through a sequence it had already mapped. Patient is the word, not aggressive, not hunting. Patient. Whatever this is, it has been running on a timeline longer than this conversation. Longer than this night. It was not waiting for you specifically. It was simply ready when you arrived. You were never being tested by the levels. Something has been steering you this entire time. The question is where it was steering you to. Level 9. Here is what the science actually says about why all of this exists inside you. Cognitive neuroscientist Antti Revonsuo of the University of Turku published threat simulation theory in 2000 in the journal Behavioral and Brain Sciences. The core proposition: nightmares are not random misfires. They are a system. The brain stages controlled simulations of dangerous scenarios during sleep, specifically to rehearse threat responses so that when genuine danger arrives, the reaction has already been practiced. The whispering room, the flooded hall, the figure at the end of the aisle. Not random. A curriculum. And here is what the research concludes about people who experience these levels most intensely. They are not more damaged, not more fragile. The data shows the opposite. The brain that nightmares hardest is the brain working hardest to keep you alive. The simulation is running at full capacity. The rehearsal is thorough. Every level you just moved through was evidence that something in you refuses to be caught unprepared. That is not a disorder. That is an advantage. The system did not malfunction. It performed. What if the simulation is not preparing you for something external? What if every room, every figure, every level was not a rehearsal for a threat out there? What if it has been rehearsing you for something that is already in here? Level 10. You just checked the room. Right now, reading this, something in you looked up, glanced at the corner, assessed whether the silence is the ordinary kind. That is level 10, the room you are actually in. Every level on this scale existed inside a container. A space with edges, a door you could leave through. The elevator had doors, the forest had an exit. The fear was always inside the frame. Level 10 is when the frame is gone. Psychologists studying recursive threat perception, the phenomenon where threat response activation persists outside the original triggering context, document a specific escalation when the nervous system cannot locate a safe perimeter. When no outside can be identified, the threat response does not plateau. It escalates without a ceiling. None of what you just moved through required special conditions. A room quiet enough to hear yourself. A building empty enough to reveal its absence. A floor you could not see. A morning that looked right until it did not. All of those conditions exist in ordinary life. In rooms exactly like this one. You have been in all of these rooms before, not in a dream, in your actual life. The levels were not hypothetical. They were a map of places you already know. Level 10 is not a location. It is the moment you realize the levels were never contained in the story. They were descriptions of a system that runs in you. That is running right now. And somewhere below conscious thought, it just registered something it cannot fully classify. It has been sitting with that for longer than this conversation has been running. You already turned around.